Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Todd, and in this rendition of Dr. Todd Explains, I want to answer the question, how can I retain more of what I read? Often people will read something and they won't remember a thing. And part of the problem is we live in such a information-saturated world that we often collect information, but we don't really absorb it. And so I just wanted to give you a couple of thoughts on how I go about doing that. Now, some of this may sound old school, so just bear with me, but I do think it's very helpful in understanding what you need to do in order to truly assimilate the information. First, depending on the type of information, you got to understand there is a difference in collecting. There's information you collect. And then there's knowledge, which means you know certain things. And then there's wisdom, which is a proper application of that knowledge and information in a way that's helpful to you. And so if you really want to deeply absorb and understand the information to make it knowledge and then be able to apply it to wisdom, you have to do a few things. First, you have to be aware of what it is, the information you're taking in. The second thing is you need to understand it. And then the third thing is you need to apply it. Now, I've got some old school tricks that I use, and you don't have to do this with everything, but this is a good way to do it. First, when possible, I will actually read hard books, paperbacks, whatever you want, physical books, books that are useful. I will mark them up with highlighter pens and make annotations in the margins. This is a book on, I'm preparing for a development class that I'll be teaching. This is called The Person in Psychology and Christianity. It's a deep book, and so I want to make sure I understand it. So I read a chapter, let's say. As I read, I highlight the information. After highlighting the information, I then go back after letting it sit for a day or so, and I start taking notes. Now, when I take the notes, one of the things I do, I take them by hand on 4x6 index cards. In the top right corner, I put the author and the date of publication. Then beside it, I'll put whatever key theme or what it's covering. Here I'm reading about Albert Bandera, so I've got Bandera up here on the top. Then what I'll do is I'll go back through the chapter, and I'll look at all my highlights and all of my annotations, and I will check to see. I'll start summarizing those and taking those concepts and putting them in my own words. That's the key that I never understood before. You have to be able to summarize things in your own words if you're going to truly understand it. Richard Feynman, the great Nobel Peace Prize winning physicist, developed something called the Feynman technique. And what it essentially is, what it says is, that technique says or postulates that you truly don't understand something until you can explain it to an uninitiated friend. So I will try to summarize in my own words the main concepts or truths or thoughts that are in the chapter or even in a section sometimes. And after I do that, though, it's not enough to end there. I have to also attempt to give an analogy, a metaphor, simile, illustration. So what I'm doing there is I'm actually thinking through from the perspective of the learner, the person I'm trying to communicate with. What I'm thinking is they've never heard of this before. Therefore, they need to be able to understand it with something that they know. So I will say, oh, it's like this, and then I'll give an illustration or an example. I'll put that on a note card too as I'm thinking through it. Then what's interesting is I'll do this as well. I will actually come in here in my studio and I will film me explaining it to the camera. That allows me, sometimes even send those links. I'll upload it to YouTube as an unlisted video, and I'll send those links sometimes to a couple of close friends of mine to get their feedback on it, because it's almost like the more you tell the story and the more you tell it correctly, the deeper it goes down into your soul and the more familiar you become with the material. Now, on a practical level, if I'm an undergraduate student or even a graduate student, I'm looking at this and going, Dr. Todd, that sounds great, but I just don't have the time. Well, this is like anything else in life. You get out of it what you put into it. So if you put a lot into it, you're going to take a lot out of it and you're going to learn a lot. So we're not just trying to memorize things for a test. We're trying to actually learn concepts and information and actually develop new ideas from that. That's what learning's all about. And I'm a firm believer, if you're not learning, you're dying. So you got to keep learning as long as you're around. And so if you'll do that, if you'll take a book that interests you, get one in a paper, a physical book, get some 4x6 index cards. I usually just use yellow highlighters for the big concepts and then a little Pigma Micron 0.2 pen to jot in the margins. And then I will do it then I will make flashcards, longhand 4x6. Also make sure, like I said, that you can cross-reference it to the source so you don't lose the source. I keep them in a box in the other room there. That will then I will identify the concepts and I will think of a way to explain it to somebody. I'll then practice that explanation, and the explanation does not only consist of what this is. It also consists of this is what it's like. So you have to be able to list the concept, define the concept, and then apply the concept in a way that people can go, oh, yeah, I get that. That's exactly like this and that and whatever. That's what you need to do. If you do that and they can grab a hold of it, they can truly learn from it, and you can learn from it. The other thing is, the more you practice this, the tighter that illustration, that tighter that story gets, and you can tuck it away in your mind and recall it fairly easily in the future if you need it. And what's really exciting is it becomes a little encapsulated piece of information that you can then connect with other encapsulated pieces of information that you've picked up along the way and actually then create new knowledge. So that's the excitement of any kind of research or educational process. Well, I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. But I look forward to interacting with you. If you have any more ideas that you'd like to see in the future, concepts like this, just let me know. Otherwise, God bless. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Talk to you soon.